Welcome to the Scottish Watches podcast. This is going to be an interesting show and it's going to be exciting because we're going to be talking about Formula 1 stars. We're going to be talking about Swiss watchmaking. We're going to talk about all the cool things that you tune in to hear about. Lots of releases, some brand new. We're going to do some wrist checks live on the show with a brand new watch that's been embargoed. We've had it here for a while. Finally, we get to talk about it. And it's not Dave's favourite colour, but it's second favourite colour. Anyway, Dave's on the line with us today. How are you?
Well, I am neither exciting or kind of worthy of the news, but thanks for that beautiful introduction. But yes, we've got lots of watches to cover in this episode, and even maybe a few words from some other people, so you don't need to get bored listening to just my voice and Ricky's voice. Some cool watches have been released, normally in a slightly quieter time of the year, but yeah, a couple of cool pieces that we're going to try and get covered over. How am I otherwise? Yeah, I'm fine. We survived the storm. The Friday, Saturday here was a little bit turbulent, Ricky. It was a bit windy.
I don't need to know about your flatulence, neither do the listeners and the viewers, but we're going to move straight into first gear, move off the starting blocks, in pole position, and chat about a fantastic watch from our friends over at Moser. They have collaborated with one of their collaborators, funnily enough, and this is a piece that you might quite like because it's one of the earthy tones that you would find in your underpants. So yeah, tell us all about it.
You'll find earthy tones with me kind of all over, especially at the weekend when I smear it everywhere.
Good skid marks.
Sometimes you have to brake hard. You have to stop things as they're happening. But yes, Moser have released not just one, but two special edition Streamliners. And these are Streamliner Tourbillon Pierre Gasly limited editions. Pierre Gasly, if anyone doesn't know, he is one of the drivers in the Formula 1 team that, of course, Moser are sponsoring, that being the Alpine team. So as I mentioned, there's two limited edition models, very similar. One is definitely much rarer than the other one, which is, to be fair, also quite rare in its own right. But, well, what have they done? Well, earlier this year, they did release a couple of watches. They did the driver and the mechanics edition of the Streamliners, of which the mechanics edition is one of my favourite releases of the year. But outside that, they've now got these two. Both are in 5N red gold, and red gold is such a beautiful colour to be having in a gold case watch. One of the rarer kind of colour mixes. Usually it's 2N, 3N, maybe occasionally 4N, but 5N is, in my opinion, again, one of the best. It's a 40mm model, so it's not a huge monster. It's only 12mm thick, very wearable. And it features the HMC 805 automatic tourbillon movement. You've got what you would expect in terms of water resistance and day-to-day, 120 metres, perfectly adequate for day-to-day use. And apparently Gasly was directly involved in kind of honing the little finessed parts of this watch. He wanted something that apparently would be elegant and versatile, and he didn't want anything that was too flashy. Not sure you can kind of say not too flashy and then put the words 5N red gold in it, but anyway, let's go with it. It's got a warm chocolate fume dial. It looks really good against the gold. You've got the transparent logo, which of course Moser are famous for, kind of stepping back from being too shouty about who they are. If you know, you know. Of the two models, the rarer one, that one's got a baguette cut ruby that marks the 10 o'clock applique. That is, of course, a nod to Gasly's racing number, which is 10, and that is in itself a tribute to his favourite football player, Zinedine Zidane, a French master of soccer from, I think, maybe the 80s, 90s, maybe 2000s, can't quite remember because I'm not a big football fan.
Is he the guy that stuck the head in people?
Yes, and he was so well known, in fact, that even Family Guy, that American comedy cartoon, they have a picture of him giving birthday wishes to people where he rings their doorbell, he has a cake, they open the door, he hands the cake, sticks the head to them and says, Bon anniversaire. So yes, that is him indeed. He was an exceptionally talented football player.
Who would win in a fight, him or Vinnie Jones?
And I think that would be a fight to the death, and they would both end up probably more or less dead. But anyway, less said about that, possibly the better. This automatic flying tourbillon has got a 3-day power reserve. You've got the double hairspring in there, which kind of compensates for positional errors. So yes, there are those two versions. There's the one with the ruby, the super rare one. There's only 10 of those. And then there is the more regular, albeit still limited edition of 100-piece one. Price point wise, $98,500 for the standard edition in 100 pieces. And that one also is mounted on an integrated rubber chocolate coloured strap, kind of slightly sportier look. And the rarer of the two, only 10 as I mentioned, $148,500 and it though comes with a full red gold integrated bracelet. As we know, gold unfortunately is far from cheap, and that is why the watch, well, not quite doubles, but not that far away from doubling. A little bit more sane than maybe that Zenith one, where, if I remember rightly, Ricky, we saw that at the start of the year, and the bracelet was more than the actual watch, if I remember rightly. But anyway, two great looking watches. And it's also going to prove slowly but surely those rubber straps are beginning to filter into some of the streamliners. I know that the guys at Moser were hesitant at first about putting a rubber strap on it because the bracelet's just so good. But where it's used properly, with the right colour, against the right case, I think it definitely works as well. So yeah, love both of these. I'm not a person for jewels on the dials or bezels or anything in watches, but this one, in my opinion, kinda works.
My thoughts are, I'm not a big fan of the one where the 10 stands out proud. It breaks the symmetry for me, and that's just a big no-no. I listened in on the actual press conference that they had where they'd invited, it was mainly people and journalists from the Asian markets, I would say, that were on the line. But I listened because a lot of questions were posed to, obviously, Ed himself about the watchmaking side of things and Pierre when it comes to racing. And there were lots of questions like, is this a real collaboration or have you just slapped your name on something? And he has been intricate and intrinsically linked with the creation process since day one. We know that because a year and a half ago, there or thereabouts, we went down when Moser first got involved in Formula One. We went to their Silverstone event and we got to chat with him in real life. He was super busy, but we managed to carve out a little bit of time to sit with him, have a Diet Coke, have a chat, and find out a little bit more about him. He was learning about watches, but then he went across to Schaffhausen, he went across to Moser HQ. He got to see the design process, he got involved with the graphical layout of it, obviously not the componentry when it comes to the movement tech. He got to look around precision engineering, he got to see the differences between behind the scenes at Formula One, putting together the aerodynamics package, the ECU stuff, all the cool stuff Dave and myself saw at Alpine UK last year. He got to see the Moser version of it, the wristwatch tech, the way that movements interact, how they beat tens of thousands of times hold accuracy across the day, the week and the month. And he was really into it. Questions were posed to him. What's it like with your colleagues at different teams? Are they really into watches or are they just there for the brand deal? And he said, no, a lot of the guys really do understand it. And when it came to creating his own watch, he definitely wanted a tourbillon. That was his big thing. If you're going to put a complication in there, go for the high bar, go for that pole position. And you could see it in his eyes. There was no bullshit, no bravado, no pretense. It wasn't just, yeah, okay, I'm here for a check, sell the watches, put the money in my bank account. It was not that at all. He was engrossed, he was entrenched, he was right in there, and he was interacting with all these people. And we're in the middle of the F1 season. It's not like this is the off season where he's enjoying life, chilling out, relaxing by the pool, like Fresh Prince. No, he was right in there, and he carved out an hour of his time to sit with Ed and field questions from the press, the media people, the influencers. So fingers crossed we can maybe get a little bit more information on what's going on there, a little bit more info about that collaboration. And if you get some ideas, maybe you've got some questions, we can perhaps pose them across to Ed and the team and get them answered, bring them on the show, or maybe even bring Ed on, because it's been a long time since he was on the show for a full episode. It was a year ago. Himself and Rich from Studio Underdog, they did a small insert when they were super busy at Geneva Watch Days. But he's due a return visit.
Yes, indeed he is. And maybe, well, you never know, who may or may not come along with them when that happens, but only time will tell, which is why you should probably be checking us out. Check the show notes for all the, background information, pictures, and of course, every Saturday we put one of the episodes out on YouTube, so click that little bell and that little follow, and whatever your favourite podcast purveyor is, make sure that you click that auto download button so that it's served up to you every Monday and every Thursday.
When we don't have technical gremlins or I sleep in. But no, it's a fantastic, really good limited edition watch with a lot of thought. It's not Moser, you've heard them a million times in the show. They don't just change a colour and put something out. There is always more thought behind the scenes. And when people zig, they zag. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I hear Rolex, that brand that kind of probably doesn't need any more publicity than it's already got, have made some announcements about getting more publicity.
They have, as if they need it. Maybe they're feeling the pinch since they got rid of F1 sponsorship, but they're still kicking around and the Daytona 24 and perhaps Wimbledon, things like that. They're still around about.
Low-profile sporting events.
The lower profile sporting events, they're more known in my mind as looking towards brand ambassadors with years, decades of experience and heritage. You've got Jackie Stewart still hanging on there for dear life. You've got Jack Nicklaus around the same idea. Yeah, now let's get Jack Nicholson there. Always get those two confused, but they're not the same person. But they've totally changed the game here. They have moved along a little bit. They've dropped the age requirement for entry to be a brand ambassador spokesperson, and it's way, way down there. In fact, if you're the type of person that likes the Spider-Man movies...
Yes, indeed it is. It's an actor by the name of Zendaya, and she is the new brand ambassador. She's pretty high profile, to be honest, and, well, we're saying brand ambassador, but I think they technically are called Rolex testimonies, which kind of sounds like something out of that film that I can't remember the name of, where they're all put into a ring and told to battle for their lives. But yes, she's won Emmy Awards. Some of you, if you're of a certain age, may remember her from the Disney Channel days. But she's also been in HBO's very popular Euphoria. I think she won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for that. That made her, I think, the youngest 2-time winning actor in history. Bigger things that you may have seen her in. Spider-Man. I didn't see her in that because I'm not the biggest fan. Dune films, definitely saw her in those. She's been in many romantic dramas like Malcolm and Marie and The Challengers, but she's due to be in quite a few hot and upcoming movies. Christopher Nolan's new The Odyssey, which I think comes out next year, the 3rd installment of Dune, another Spider-Man, which is also being filmed in Glasgow, kind of as we speak, stroke a few weeks ago.
Because we're cheap.
And she also is very much an ambassador for mental health awareness. So I think, to be fair, she's definitely much younger than maybe some of their other testimonies, but at the same time, she's done quite a lot, to be honest, a lot more than me or you've ever done.
So we're not using the term paid shill any longer. That's good to know. But anyway, yeah, it's good to see a little bit of changing of the guard. We've seen brand ambassadors along the way. We've talked about them before. Do they help actually promote the watches? Sometimes they really do. If it wasn't for my dad and me watching all the old James Bond movies and watching Sean Connery wearing a Rolex in Dr. No and subsequent film, did you see the guys at Amazon and MGM got a little bit of hot water because they redesigned the movie posters, the thumbnails for all the movies. They took the guns away from 007, but that's by the by. It's a little side project. I think this is great. The fact that they're looking further afield instead of the usual, the tried and the tested. But another brand ambassador that I really liked in the past was somebody from Down Under. He played that Wolverine guy, and he was involved with a brand. But they've got something out, haven't they?
They do indeed. And this is something that we were extremely lucky to see in real life, not even just in real life being actually built a mere few weeks ago. You may have heard that we were over at this place in Switzerland that kind of is the atelier for Montblanc and Minerva, and we got to see something that we're now allowed to talk about, that being the Star Legacy Suspended Exo Tourbillon Versailles. Now that, yet again, is a name that takes a mouthful. This is where Montblanc, of course, are kind of blending the Métier d'Art skills along with some of their kind of higher tech patented movement technology, in this case being the Suspended Exo Tourbillon. This is a massive tribute to the Yew Tree Ball, which famously took place in Versailles a long, long time ago. And no, this is not the start of a Star Wars movie. So yes, the Exo Tourbillon was introduced first back in 2010. This is where the balance wheel is positioned outside and above the tourbillon cage on it. Now that long, long time ago, that Yew Tree Ball was in 1745, round about 2 or 3 years before Ricky was born. It was the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. Now, the watch is a big boy, but you'll find out why, because there's a lot going on here. It's 48.4mm in diameter. It's an 18-carat yellow gold case, but the case itself is also a significant canvas for lots of traditional engraving techniques. Really kind of leaning back into Versailles and lots of the pieces of art that can still to this day be found there as well. You've got a laurel wreath motif that kind of encircles the bezel, which is a reference to Apollo, one of the gods. The watch is 15.5mm in height, which again gives that kind of area and canvassing for getting a lot of that engraving on there. The crown itself has been set with a Montblanc cut diamond that weighs around 0.11 carats. You've got a token water resistance of 30 meters, so you can kind of wash your hands with it. Definitely, though, you won't be wanting to take this one in the pool. The dial, though, what an absolute masterpiece of different layers and areas of craftsmanship. They've kind of tried to reinterpret the Hall of Mirrors, which is reflective of the night that this kind of masquerade ball went on. The base plate of the dial is 18 karat white gold. It's then been covered in black enamel. It's been decorated in gold palions to evoke a kind of glints of candle lights on the mirrored walls, because of course back then, as Ricky will tell you, there was no such thing as electricity. You've got lots of architectural elements on there that are kind of recreated. You've got opaline Cachalon stone, you've got Sarah Collin marble, which was the same material that was sourced for Versailles back in the 17th century. The parquet floor that's in there has been rendered in miniature in oak marquetry on the dial as well. You've got a sapphire plate that's been laser etched with the chandeliers and the masked figures as a kind of ghostly scene. At 12 o'clock, you've got the time display. That's kind of paying homage to a lot of the clocks of, I think it was Louis XIV. And you've got Champs-Élysées enamel that creates the white dial. You've got hand-painted blue Roman numerals, a very delicately open-worked 18-karat gold frame that's then mounted on top of the display that shows off those numbers. You've got a lot of skeletonization. You've got a yellow gold Baroque-style hands for the hours and minutes. And the centre has also been capped with a very detailed kind of carving of Apollo's head, Apollo being the god, not Apollo space rockets. And the balance, it measures in itself 14.5 millimetres with 18 regulating screws. In fact, both myself and Ricky got to try putting those regulating screws in. It was one of the few things that I think we were actually pretty good at. It's a manual wind caliber, and one of the reasons the watch is the size it is, the caliber itself is 38.3 millimetres in diameter and 6.45 millimetres in height. So this is not the kind of caliber that's going to fit in your average, 36 to 40 millimetre watch, because the caliber itself is as big as the watch. 218 parts, running at a very traditional slow speed, 18,000 vibrations per hour. You've got a 50-hour power reserve. It comes mounted on a grey calfskin strap with an alligator print and some gold stitching on there as well, and it's all secured on the wrist by an 18-karat yellow gold triple folding clasp. There are 8 pieces of it worldwide, laboratory tested at their special testing facility for 500 hours, and it comes in, as you would expect, a very prestigious bespoke presentation box that's been made by the Parisian cabinet maker Elie Bleu, and that's also fitted with a Rouge music mechanism in there as well. Now, the price is to be officially confirmed, but it's fair to say you probably won't be buying it with the pocket money. But when you see the amount of work and effort that has gone into this, which we were very lucky enough to see firsthand with the artisans who did the decoration, and of course also with the watchmakers putting these watches together, to be fair, suddenly it all becomes very reasonable. And I say that with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek because, of course, as we know, these are far from inexpensive pieces. But if you're one of the 8 lucky people in the world who've probably already confirmed and been allocated one of these pieces, you are in very refined company.
We've done a ton of factory tours over the years from the very beginning. We've done Anne Ordain, local. I did JLC back in 2019, just when the podcast started out. We've done Louis Vuitton. We've seen them making $2 million watches. We have been here, there and everywhere. Moser, Precision Engineering, Armin Strom, it goes on and on and on. And when we went across with Simon from Montblanc, Minerva, to the atelier where they put stuff together, and we got to speak to the people behind the scenes. We have explained a little bit in the past, over the past few weeks, but we've been careful not to divulge too much information because of this embargo. And to see this been put together, the way that the dial was created, the multi-parts to the case, the dial, the handset, the movement, the way the movement was explained was incredible. The way that we mentioned they do their own hairsprings. I can think of about 4 companies in the world that do their own hairsprings. Moser, Precision Engineering being one of them. It was a masterclass. Simon, who knows everything about everything, learned stuff on the day. Myself and Dave got to play around. We got to plouter. That's a good word, Scottish word. Got to plouter with different bits and bobs. We did some finishing. We did, as you mentioned, a pretend regulation of putting the tiny, tiny, tiny screws inside the balance wheel with tweezers and magnification. We do have video clips we can now show, so we will include them in the video on YouTube at the weekend. We'll also get Miziel to put some pictures in the show notes, but it was a masterclass. And the biggest problem that they have got, the massive problem they've got, is they do not shout about what they do. JLC will talk about gyro tourbillons. They will push, promote, talk about, and blast it out to everybody. These guys don't talk about it. You know, it's one of those, well, if you know, you know. But they need to tell people because it'll entice more people to check out the other watches. It's like a halo product. It's like seeing the latest and greatest from a company and going, well, I can't afford that. Maybe not this year, maybe not in the next few years. But what else have they got? Because if they're great and they're able to produce that, well, the things that maybe are within my budget, they should be looked at. The quality will drip down. So I think they do need to shout about it more. We have got another couple of episodes with them over the next 6 months or so. So we should maybe entice them to just shout a little bit louder.
Yes, a little less of that, well, reservedness and getting the news out there. And we are hopefully going to try and do that because, well, as Ricky said, lots of things we saw there really did blow us away. They're doing things old school, traditionally, while simultaneously not being shy to incorporate modern work. In fact, I can remember talking about this watch with them and asking, how is it you do the engraving on the sapphire disc? It was a laser, was the answer, which was kind of what I expected, but also maybe expected a slightly flounced up answer to it. But no, they are fully incorporating modern technology into Métier d'Art skills to make sure that you get the absolute best product that they can produce at this, let's be fair, ultra high level of watchmaking, but incorporating new skills, new techniques with time tried and tested old traditional techniques.
An example I would give is our friends at Vacheron. They talk about what they produce. They really go to bat, they go to town on it, they display it, they hark on it, and it's a positive thing because they create great things as well. I just hope Montblanc do the same because they've got such a rich story to tell. It has gone back decades and centuries. The people that are involved that work there, the way Simon explains it, it's like, we need to get this information out. And we really do hope that changes because it's well worth checking out. And Simon will be back shortly. We've had great feedback on the previous episode that went out just a few weeks back. He will be able to come on, explain about this watch, because he's over there just now. He's doing explanations to collectors, previous purchasers of different models, and because they only do 8 editions every time they do this crazy release, there are a handful of folks on the entire planet who are lucky enough to have this in their collection, and hopefully they don't keep them in a safe. Hopefully they do have them on wrist and they wear them out and about. But next up, we're going to talk about Rolex again.
We are. We're going to talk about Rolex and their very first testimony way back in 1927. I'm pretty sure that was before the kind of whole celebrity endorsement thing was a thing. But anyway, we'll get to that.
You're right. They were the guys that invented brand ambassadors, kind of. In the modern age, I believe Breguet did similar things back in the day with royalty across the European countries. But yeah, it was Rolex that really pushed things forward. They talked about, they promoted, they pushed things out, and they used whoever was flavour of the month or year. And this time around, it was somebody that was involved in water and swimming. And maybe the first time they tried something or the second time they tried something, it didn't go quite to plan, but that didn't stop Rolex talking about it.
Well, to be fair, I think when you hear the whole story, you'll agree that this particular individual was, well, quite special. I'm probably going to butcher their second name, but the name, as far as I can pronounce it, is Mercedes Gleitz. And in 1927, she wore the Rolex Oyster. And what was she all about? Proving that she could swim across the channel as fast as any lady had ever done it. And at the same time, Rolex, of course, wanted to validate, was the Oyster waterproof? Now, this watch is coming up for auction for the first time in, I believe, around a quarter of a century. The British swimmer back in 1927, that is the watch she wore. It's the historic watch that was a symbol of endurance, and I believe it would be regarded as one of the most important pieces of history of the brand Rolex as well. So in 1927, she did a thing that was named the Vindication Swim. The watch in November comes up at Sotheby's Important Watches Live sale. But back on October the 7th, 1927, she became the first British woman to swim the English Channel, and she completed the feat in 15 hours and 15 minutes. A mere few days later, though, another swimmer then, as it appeared, falsely claimed to have done exactly the same achievement, and this raised a lot of doubts about her success. Even though after the rival finally admitted it was a complete hoax, she had already agreed to defend her own record with a second attempt. So on October the 21st, she set off again, but unfortunately this time back end of October in the UK. Weather was, well, let's say, not the best, and deteriorating conditions, what became known as a vindication swim. She was forced to abandon the effort after swimming for more than 10 hours in, well, the English Channel, which in the winter is not a friendly, warm swimming pool. Basically, between that endurance of hers, she kept her legacy, the Oyster watch kept ticking, water never got in as well, and it gave Rolex, I guess, the ultimate proof that its waterproof case actually did exactly what it said on the tin. She went on to become, as I mentioned earlier, their first testimony and, well, brand ambassador in today's names. I guess that's what we could probably call it as well. But interesting watch coming up for auction. One of the watches I think coming up for auction that's probably genuinely worth keeping an eye on it, because this did set a moment in history, and we can probably thank lots of the things that Rolex did back then that we take for granted nowadays. We often scoff about watches only being 30 metres or 100 metres. You've got to remember that not that long ago, 100 years ago, you couldn't get anywhere near water with them for fear of them not working. So cool, let's keep an eye on what it goes for. Bet you it's a lot, but not as much as you think. Wonder if Rolex may or may not be shilling someone to buy it at the auction.
Allegedly, of course, that's a joke, and we're a comedy podcast, therefore we can't be sued by people that want to sue us for jokes and things. But you talk about water resistance and whatnot, and the fact that we're doing it 100 years ago. Imagine if somebody at Omega found out about this and incorporated water resistance into Speedmasters. But anyway, that's me off Dave, and he's not bought my Christmas present yet, so I got to keep him on side, unlike other people. But yeah, this is good news. We saw a fantastic, I don't even know what you would call this, museum-esque display at Dubai Watch Week a couple of years ago. Can you tell I'm segueing into telling you about Dubai Watch Week? Yes, I am. Dubai Watch Week is coming up, but you already know that. Check the show notes. It's happening imminently. You can come. You can see all the greatest, the latest, all the cool stuff from all the different brands we talk about. Moser are going to be there. Dave and myself are going to be there. It's going to be a great little party. But back to this. Brand ambassadors, I think there is a place for it. I love the fact that when you go into different boutiques, different, not even monobrand boutiques, but the conglomerates, you get to see this person and that person. Henry Cavill, you've got Jennifer Lawrence, you've got all these people. Mentioned Hugh Jackman that used to do Montblanc. It's pretty cool. And then the last couple of years, TAG have really elevated themselves because they had Ryan Gosling on board. They did that mockumentary little 60-second teaser trailer and then a short 5-minute film a couple of years ago to talk about the 40th birthday, I think it was, at Carrera, or the 60th. One of the birthdays of Carrera, who knows, who can tell. I think it's a good thing. As long as the people that are involved aren't just there for a paycheck, then they get involved a little bit deeper, like as we talked about with Moser, it's all good things. So it's time for the wrist check, and unfortunately I've been hiding something. Not on the wrist, it's been hiding under the table for a while, and it's not what you think. Don't go down that route, Dave. I am wearing a watch that we get sent in under embargo, and I'm quite careful with embargoes. I try not to break them. There's another member of the team over in New York, he's got the dibs on that one. And this is a watch I've worn out and about. I've been very careful not to have it seen. Most recently, wore it to the circus, and I don't mean Scottish Watches Towers when we all get together. It's phenomenal. It's a watch that I have looked at and I have tried my very best to pull the trigger numerous times in the past, but there's always been something holding me back. Will the next iteration, will that be the one that grabs me? Will there be another colourway that really gets me? And the colour I'm wearing today on this watch is something I didn't think I would do. So let's just take the cat out of the bag, or the wrist from under the desk, and explain. I am wearing a Norqain. It's been a good couple of years since we actually had some watches across from Switzerland to check out. Obviously, way back in the day, Catlin, 10 and 2 podcast, along with Cat Shoulders, they were talking about Norqain. They were beaming about it. We got in touch with Ben, and then Catlin actually ended up working for Norqain, and not as in for a little while. She's still there, and she's running lots of things over in the States. She's gone up the ranks. I don't exactly know her designation and what she does, but I think if I was in the States, she'd be the one speaking to me. Over in the UK, we've had a lot of changes. We've had a couple of people coming on board. We've got Leo and we've got Martin. They're at the helm of Norqain UK division, and they have been furnishing me with so much information on what's out just now, what's been happening, and what's coming down the line. And let's just say the next 6 months, or the next 3/4 of a year, we're leading into Watches and Wonders next year. That's the next big one everyone's talking about. There's going to be some epic things coming down the line that you'll want to check out. So that's a good opportunity to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Scottish Watches. Obviously follow us on YouTube, subscribe, whatever they call it these days, and in your podcast player on Spotify, do the same. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, you know the situation. So Norqain, it's a brand we've spoken about for a long time because I think they're around about the same age as we are. So we launched in 2019. They maybe came out a couple of years before that, but they've been working on things for a long time previous to that. The family behind the scenes, well, they know watchmaking extremely well. And Ben, the man at the top there, it was a family affair. It was originally Ben, his brother, and his sister. I believe his sister's moved on to other things. She was somebody else we spoke to a lot over the past couple of years, and things have solidified. A lot of brands have come from nowhere, they've grown, they've exploded, and then they have just dissipated and disappeared onto the horizon and beyond. Norqain are still there, they're actually doing better than they ever have. A quick example of such is, coming back from Geneva Watch Days, in the airport, they had a massive display area, and I'd mentioned seeing Norqain in different places, maybe Frankfurt Airport, but when you're actually in Geneva's airport, there's limited space for brands, there's limited things to do and see there. You've got beside them Blancpain, Breguet, you've got Omega, and then there's Norqain. That shows you the neck and neck levels these guys are playing with just now, and it can only get better. We talked about the Stan the Man release, the tennis ball watch, a number of weeks ago. That sold out before we could even air the episode of the podcast with it in it. So they're going great guns. This new one I've got here is a twist on an old favourite. It's based on the Wild One. It is the Wild One. It's the slightly larger size, but the difference this time is it's in purple. And I'm not big on purple. It's a cool colour, it stands out, it's been a little bit more in the public consciousness maybe for around about a year now. So when this arrived, I thought, am I going to like it? Am I going to want this more than the green edition, the acid yellow one, the blue one, the turquoise one that they had out? I don't know, or the orange one, obviously, to match the car. So when I was wearing this out and about, wore it to the circus as I mentioned, I just kept staring at it. I just kept looking down and I thought, am I going to be able to tell the time on it? Because it's skeletonized and the handset, it doesn't jump off when you immediately look at it. The thing is though, a slight twist of the wrist and a little bit like my Tudor ceramic Black Shield Fast Rider Ducati edition, think I got that right, with its mirror polished hands. I thought when I initially bought that, it's going to look cool in the daylight. Going to be hard to tell the time at night? Not at all. If you're in a room with any light anywhere, the fact that the hands are so polished, they catch the light, this is actually better. The indexes on this are actually better, and there is a little bit of lume that you can actually see, which is phenomenal. So I'm not sure if purple is my new favourite colour. I'd like to, well actually it possibly could be because I'm speaking to somebody else about a purple watch that you'll hear about shortly. But this one just is incredible. It's a real shame. It's a loaner that has to go back immediately. Because we got this ahead of time, it has to go to other journalists. They're going to be able to talk about it. They're going to be able to express their opinions upon it. But yeah, look in the show notes to check out exactly what we're talking about with this one. So giving you a little bit more details on this particular iteration of the Wild One. It's purple and it's limited to 400 pieces. I really hope by the time this episode comes out that there will be a couple left that you guys can go check out, but be fast, be quick, click across in the show notes to their website, have a look, see what you can find, see if you can find it locally or have a look online. But yeah, this purple, it is pretty damn cool and it is loving the coloration in the studio here at Scottish Watches Tower. It's not exactly purple behind me, but it is blue and that is dancing around on the movement there. You can see straight through, you can see the beating heart up at the 12 o'clock position underneath the Norqain logo. You can see all the componentry in there under those polished hands. And the price point is actually really good. You would think, okay, this is a brand that is on the up and up, it's appearing in retail places, it's going to be very, very expensive. You're going to be quite shocked when you find out in a couple of seconds exactly how inexpensive this is for what you're getting on the wrist. But running through details on the actual watch itself, the construction, because, well, it's not exactly made of metalwork everywhere. This is Norqain's proprietary, ultra-robust and lightweight Nortec technology. It's carbon fibre reinforced material, and inside you've obviously got a shock-resistant middle made of rubber. That makes sure that if you're doing any kind of a sports, extreme or otherwise, a lot of their brand ambassadors you'll have seen do lots of cool things, including play tennis. So this is definitely up for the job of getting donked and whacked around. It's got a certified movement inside, offering over 40 hours of power reserve, I think it's 41, and of course. And on the back, we've got a customised rotor, so yeah, the personalisation, the customisation and the detailing doesn't finish on the front. So peering through the black, everything has got a bit of a shadow tint to it. It's, I wouldn't say murdered out, because you can actually see the rubies, you can see some coloration there of gold in the centre, obviously lots of stainless steel and lots of moving componentry. Plastered on the back glass, you've got limited edition Norqain 1 of 400 and obviously the personalised rotor underneath as well. This 42mm watch, I don't have an exact price on it. I thought I did. I thought I had it in an email. I went to check. No, I do not. But having a look at other ones in the UK, they're sitting around about the £4,750 mark for the generic ones. I would not expect something like this to be much more than that, even though it is limited edition. One of 400 pieces is not that many. And with global distribution, lots of stuff happening in the States, lots of stuff happening in the UK, obviously. These will not last long. So our advice is always the same. If you see something and you like it and you can afford it, go get it. If you decide a little bit of buyer's remorse in the future, hey, there's lots of platforms like eBay where you can offload and move on to something else. But I've never heard of anybody buying a Norqain and returning it. Let's just put it that way. So this is absolutely fabulous. Really nice watch. Really a bit of a shame I have to send it back. Is purple going to be my first coloration when it comes to getting myself one of these Norqain watches? Who knows? You'll just have to stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, well, there we go. There is another amazing addition to the Wild One range. Norqain's a brand that, well, I think their first editions, cool watches, didn't quite hit my aesthetic, but the Wild One then appeared. Bright colours. David likes a bright colour. Bit of skeletonizing in some of them. Dave quite likes skeletonizing when it's done, well, with a degree of finesse, like it has been in this watch. Dave likes techie materials. This watch is full of those techie materials. Ones with a little bit more authenticity than maybe, let's say, some other brands. Not talking about anything that might be made out of an oil-based plastic. But yes, cool looking watch. It's purple, which is a colour that is also difficult for me to say.
Purple burglar alarm. Can you say that?
Purple burglar alarms.
Purple burglar alarm. People keep asking me this.
Purple burglar alarm. Anyway, moving on, it's in purple. It's 40, I said it correctly that time. I probably couldn't do that again if I tried. 42 millimeters in size, so it's one of the larger of the two sizes they do in that. In fact, they now do three sizes. I may be corrected. I think they do 42, I think they do 38. Do they, Ricky? Can we remember if they do two or three sizes? Anyway, they've got two at the extremes, I think 38 and 42. Skeletonized, they've done a few skeletonized ones before, but this is, well, adding to that quiver of watches that they've...
Quiver? That's good, Dave. You've been reading up on dictionary.com.
Great looking watch. If you like Norqain, if you like something a little bit different from the norm, but has got a grounding in some real traditional watchmaking and has got a pretty solid movement that's not a caliber that may be expected from a lot of brands. They, of course, are in bed with the guys at Kinese. Where else will you find Kinese movements? Well, of course, in Tudor and a couple of other brands as well, but definitely in the upper echelons of the industrial manufacture calibers in there. So yes, lovely little watch. And we've had to keep that one quiet for a little time because apparently they don't like how we say purple.
Or embargoes, something like that. We've had embargoes before. Sometimes we do keep them, Ms. Now it's time to ask Dave what he's got on his wrist. And it's not handcuffs.
No, well, I mean, it was at the weekend, but now it's Monday, so we have to be down to serious work. Well, we have been talking, of course, about one of our collaboration watches that we talked about a few weeks ago, which made me look through the back catalogue of the many different collabs we've done. And I pulled out, well, one of my favourite. And what is that? Well, the favourite of mine is the Formex. I've now got it off the bracelet and I've got it on one of their new blue fabric straps, which of course mounts into their extremely versatile little clasp, which has got 7 millimeters of adjustment that can be adjusted on and off the wrist. It looks, well, let's go with a bit, uninspiring on the back, because of course you need to get out your little UV lamp to see what's going on there. And you've got, well, lots and lots of interesting little secret squirrel things going on there. And if you don't know, I'm not going to show you on mine. Ricky's currently holding a UV torch up to the screen to try and get it to work.
Is that helping?
It's absolutely not working, but that's good because what that means is people are going to go and have to find out how this all works. You've of course got this suspension case in there, and look, I can make it go up and down without the case falling apart. And if you know what I'm talking about, well, you know what I'm talking about. You've got the adventuring dial on there. You've got that lovely little kind of chamfered date window down at the bottom with not a date coloured window, which makes me very happy. And actually even Ricky's quite happy there because there's a reason for it not being dial coloured on this one. Lots of other little secret squirrel things there. The colour of the loom. Because what's the theme again, Ricky, of this watch?
It's called Sky, so it is about a certain place, top end of Scotland, and this one is to commemorate last year when everything was about the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis.
And the different colours of illumination on the hands and also on the appliques here kind of are a gentle little nod to that Borealis. But yeah, loving it on the strap, really nice, because when this watch first came out, if I remember rightly, they didn't do this darker navy fabric strap, but that's been added to their roster and it now looks an absolute treat on this. Just brings the weight down a little bit, and just with that 7mm of adjustment as mentioned on the clasp, makes this super wearable. So that's what David is wearing, not wearing this week.
And David might be paying a visit to the other division of Scottish Watches Towers later on to pick up his Nessie 2 watch, the Pearl Diver. That's a watch that is our latest limited edition. It's still available, thankfully, and people have been emailing asking if they can still get it. Yes, you can. You just have to do a little bit of Googling or check the show notes. So that is the latest one that you can actually get your mitts on. Those ones, I believe, occasionally pop up on eBay, but it's been a while since I've seen one because I do have a saved search. I do like keeping an eye on things, but that is phenomenal. Such a huge story. I recently told it as a wrist check on a prior edition. The tattoo artist that is a great friend of both myself and Dave, he spent months working on the design for this. Far too long. You know when someone's a perfectionist and they keep pushing it and tweaking it and refining it instead of just going, it's done? That's Matt. He did it with the watch. He's done it with various things. He did it with my wedding invite. It took about 4 months for him to get that done. It's insane. Details, pictures, everything in the show notes. But time is of the essence. Time is precious, and it's time to watch our time.
Ricky nearly caught Dave off guard with that little segue, but that was quite nicely done. Well, what's the segue about? Yes, Watch Time in New York is coming up in October, middle of October, and they're celebrating their 10 years of the show, which is also pretty interesting because at the same time, of course, you also have got the Wind-Up Fair, and it's their 10th anniversary as well. Both those shows taking place in New York at the same time. What has become the New York Watch Week? It also aligns this year with the Global Red Bar event, which is taking place in New York again. So yes, apparently just over 10 years ago, 3 of the people at Watch Time were on a business trip and were kind of trying to work out and talk about the future of watch events. They'd been in Chicago, they weren't sure where everything was going to go because you had this sudden rise around 10 years ago of independent watch boutiques. So the brands doing their own things, moving away from these kind of multi-brand events, multi-brand boutiques. They felt what was needed was a show that was about community, experience and interaction. They'd seen some shows like Salon Coupe in London, Vienna Time, and of course Baselworld. And back in 2015, they put a show on with 18 brands at that point in time. 10 years later though, fast forward, we're now at 44 brands, coming from what they say is 9 different countries around the world and 33 states in the US as well. So great to see them still going strong, along of course with many of the other shows that have really stuck at doing something a little bit different and making it all about the client and the individual, not so much about the brand. The brands are there to entertain the audience, not the other way around. So, yep, if you are in New York or you're planning on being around New York in the middle of October, and you can get yourself to New York, lots to do and see in the watch world. Tickets for that one, I believe, are on sale. They're relatively inexpensive. And I also believe that the Wind-Up Fair is free to enter as long as you get there early enough to get in before it's completely full up of people.
This is one of the physical print media magazines that I actually pick up when I find it in airports. Generally the English version, otherwise I'm just looking at the pictures, although the English version will do the same. And I remember the main guy, Roger. He was one of the featured guests on Tim Mosso's show on YouTube nearly 10 years ago when I first got into things, 2017. And it was listening to him explaining about watches. It made me go and hunt out watch publications. In the UK, it's thin pickings. You can sometimes see Revolution occasionally. Sometimes you could see QP, then it died off, then it kind of came back again. But Watch Time, it hit that middle ground where it teaches you things without you reading it and thinking that you're being belittled, talked down to. So it's a fantastic publication. Their website's great. Their social media presence is great. Keep threatening to bring Roger onto the show. Perhaps we should do, because 10 years is a big number. So great stuff happening there. And potentially a few of the guys from Scottish Watches Towers Extended International Edition might be paying a visit. So we might get them on to talk about what's been happening. So this is the part of the show where we bring on somebody to speak that isn't myself or Dave. Aren't you lucky? And this is going to be somebody that is going to be on more often than not, because it's a brand we'd heard about in the past, but we hadn't seen anything from them that jumped off the page. And then we did. We got a press release through. We got some pictures, some images, and we thought, this is different. This isn't what we're used to seeing from these guys. I can explain a little bit about it. Dave could do his very best, but why bother doing that when you can actually bring one of the chaps from the brand on and they can tell you all themselves? So welcome to the show, mystery guest. Introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from.
Hi, I'm James Fields, founder of Swan and Edgar. And Ricky, it's an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast. And likewise, I hope to be on here more often in the future.
If you're going to be producing watches of the quality that I have seen with cool designs that I have not seen before, then definitely so. And it turns out there's a lot of people connected between us. You know that 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon thing that they talk about in Hollywood? Well, I just had Anthony, your PR guy, in my house today.
Wow, that's interesting.
So he was actually visiting. He stays in Italy. He is an associate. He didn't even tell me this beforehand. He's the man that does marketing and PR for certain countries and territories for Pirelli, the tire company. That is a big, big company. So he was passing through Scotland and said, listen, before I head back down to England and on my way back to Italy, do you want me to pop in and say hello? So he turned up with his wife. We had a coffee, we had a chat, and I said, you'll never guess who I'm recording with later on today. And that's when he told me that he's actually doing some work for you guys. So there you go, 2 for 2. But enough of that. We're here to talk about a fantastic watch. And this was released just a few days ago. We couldn't quite get it on embargo day because this show, the news show, comes out on a Thursday and you released on a Monday. But it gives us a bit of a chance to find out more, see what the reception's been like, see some of the problems that you struck upon, even though you tried to mitigate as many as possible. Websites, they never work properly. We've encountered this many times before. But for people that maybe don't know about the brand, do you want to give us the 60-second elevator pitch on who you are and what the brand's all about?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and keep it brief, but there's quite a cool story behind it. So I could also tell you a little bit about Anthony as well, because it's a funny story how we got in touch. It was actually our first exhibition was the World Time event for the Horizon launch. However, the big issue with that is it was also my sister's wedding. So for our first proper watch enthusiast exhibition, I, the founder of the brand, couldn't even be there because it was my sister's wedding in LA. So we got in touch with Anthony and he was absolutely brilliant. So it's just nuts that he's ended up in your home as well, the same day that I'm doing the podcast. So it's just crazy how the world works.
It totally is. It's mad. Well, tell us more about the brand and what you guys are up to then.
Yeah, so Swan and Edgar, you might have heard of. It was famed in it was situated in Piccadilly. It survived 2 world wars, and the personal connection is it was my father's favorite store, and it was really synonymous with British heritage. Now, how did I come about the brand? Other than knowing that it was my father's favorite store. Well, I was working in investment banking. I left my job to naively, or not so naively, that's judgment to be told, set up a watch company from my dad's second bedroom. And we thought, well, look, Swan and Edgar, that's his favorite store. And we took over the trademarks. And, it started off quite, entry level. And, my knowledge of watches looking back clearly wasn't what it is today. So we refined, and we aimed to bring out watches that basically highlight and showcase British heritage. And we aim to, with the start of the Horizon and moving forward, bring more of the manufacturing into the UK, which, as I'm sure you're aware, Ricky, is no easy feat, but we're taking step by step. And with the Horizon, it is British assembled and regulated in the UK as well. So that's our first step. We aim for much more in the UK as well.
Well, that's good. And when I mentioned earlier, I'd heard of the brand before. You're right. It was entry point watches, the kind of things you might see in an airport. So when I got the press release through and I looked at it, I thought, something's different, something's changing. And taking over a brand, I mean, that's what the guys at Chupec did. They've not been running that for 180 years. It's 10 years since Xavier and his shareholders got involved with it. They took inspiration from something that really appealed to them. They brought it forward. Even Nicholas at Fears, although that was his family company, the family name, he brought that back from the brink. And he started off not with really inexpensive watches, but he started with quartz. And then he moved and he moved and he pivoted, and now he's got a showroom, a boutique. He's got 30 plus employees, I believe, within the space of a decade. So this is how it all works. This is how it comes to be. And the fact that you're not just putting out those entry point watches, you're expanding. That is to be commended, because people can just stick to what they know, especially in a down market, which today the watch market is not the same as it was 1, 2, 3 years ago. So that is fantastic. So tell us more about the new release then. Let's get into the heart of the matter. Tell us about Horizon.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's very much an evolving company. I'm still quite young, even though I'm getting a few gray hairs now, and we're very much evolving. As we mature, and as I said, the Horizon is the first step into that major arena. So the Horizon itself is modeled off the White Cliffs of Dover. Again, in keeping with the Swan and Edgar theme of showcasing British heritage. So we have two colors. We have the blue, which represents the English Channel. We have the white stone watch dial, which represents the white chalky cliffs. Now, what we're doing with the watches moving forward is we're incorporating elements of British horological history. So with that, the White Cliffs of Dover were the front line for the Battle of Britain, and the RAF sector clock was so crucial in plotting enemy aircraft for that battle. And so that piece of horological history, the RAF sector clock, is incorporated within the watch.
Right. Well, there's a lot of things tying together there. And I did read the press release, but I didn't pay that much attention. Again, I like to bring people into the show and have them inform me and everybody listening and watching at home, versus me trying to pretend I've never heard this before and bringing you on and going, oh gosh, oh golly, this is all new information to me. But tell us a little bit more about yourself then. So how old are you, and what was the impetus? What drove you to decide to get your feet, well, dirty in the watch industry, I suppose?
Yeah, so I'm 33 years old. I actually have a background in finance. So I did a master's in finance and accounting, went into investment banking, which obviously is not probably the typical start for a watch brand. However, I grew up around watches. My father's always been in watches. And so whilst, I had a very stable job and a great career path, it just didn't feel quite right. So moving out from a beautiful Canary Wharf apartment overlooking the Thames with a great career path, I decided to pack my bags and turn up to my dad's apartment, much to his surprise, with a suitcase, telling him that I was going to start a watch company. And his first response was, "What am I going to tell your mother?" And I think from that, it's been an interesting and exciting journey. And really, I think this project just shows the maturity of my experience in watches and the brand moving from those entry-level watches into more serious watchmaking territory. And that will continue to be the case. And it's really an exciting time for Swan and Edgar, because it's a continual evolution for us and myself.
Well, the Horizon's obviously going to be the first port of call for people, but it's such a change design-wise to even watches I've seen from many other brands. I can't pinpoint anything where, oh, well, maybe that came from this, that came from that, the aperture for this came from this watch, and all the rest of it. But to listen to you talking this way, coming from finance, the guys at William Wood Watches, they were involved in finance behind the scenes, and they just shot off massively. You know what they've done over the last few years? They've grown and grown and developed new ranges along the way. And even, I'm trying to think back, it was the first story that Rich at Studio Underdog told us, that he used to work for Xeon watches. They're the kids' watches at £7 to £15. I had and still have somewhere a Darth Vader kids watch that you pop the helmet open, look inside, and there's a really cheap LCD. And look where he's gone in the industry. So you can start off with something and then you can move forward. You can learn as you go along and progress. So run us through the spec on the watch then. Tell us, you were mentioning it's put together in the UK. Is there anybody behind the scenes we know about? And what is the mechanism that's involved? What's the sizing, etc., etc.?
Absolutely. It's a 39.5 millimeter case. So quite a nice balance for different wrist sizes. It's a 9015 Miyota movement. So it's high beat, keeps the watch very slim. It's 316L stainless steel case, Italian suede leathers. And the dials themselves, I think, are very interesting, because you have the blue fume enamel finished dial for the English Channel one. and and that's kiln fired, by the way, at high temperatures. That gives you that real depth of tone that you're seeing. On the white version, you've got a natural white quartz stone, which we felt was the best natural representation for the white cliffs. We looked at many different stones. And at the 12 o'clock, you might have seen, because it's quite an unusual style, you have this gold triangular sector. And obviously that pays homage to the RAF sector clock, alongside the custom date wheels that show different colors, the red, white, and the blue that you see on the different colors of the sector. So those are the specs. Those dials are elevated above different bases. You've got a Muso black on the white dial one, and then you've got a white chalk base on the blue dial. So essentially keeping a multi-layered dial at a very low profile, because it's only about 11.3 millimeters thickness, was extremely challenging, especially with the stone, which can be quite brittle at very thin, at a very thin measurement.
It's a difficult thing to work with, and we've talked at length on the show about yield rates, especially working with enamel, and the fact that it's not just enamel the way that some people talk about it, where it's the cheap way of doing it. It sounds like you've done it the expensive way, where the yield rates are even lower. So this is available just now as we are recording and as we're putting this show out. So hopefully there'll still be some left. But if you want to tell people where they can go, what's the website? What's the Instagram?
Instagram is Swan and Edgar, and the website is swanandedgar.com. And essentially it's our main headline banner image, or you can navigate through the collections pages.
Fantastic. And if people want to check you out in real life, the watches, not you personally, is there any events you've got up and coming?
We'll be attending a British Watchmakers event. That will be in March. However, we're looking at micro-brand Praha, but that's a little too tight to launch. It's a possibility, but definitely British Watchmakers in March 2026.
And I guarantee I will actually attend that one. I'm not getting married again. I've done that once. I'm quite happy with it. I'm not saying I'm going to do it again. It's like I'm happy where I am. So all is good there. It'll be nice to catch up with you, but we're getting dragged around the place. I've tried my best to not visit England as much as possible, because nothing against the English. People think Scottish people have got a thing against English. It is not the case. I'm not into football, so I don't care about that. But as I keep saying, it's faster and easier and more economical for me to go to Geneva or Switzerland than it is to get to London. But I am coming down south. There are a few things that are happening over the next little while. So fingers crossed I can actually catch up with you in real life, unless you come to Scotland beforehand, because we will be having another Glasgow Watch Show next year. I have heard about that. But no, that is phenomenal. Really do appreciate you coming on, especially the day after your launch. And you told me there was some gremlins with the website and the American customers weren't quite getting all the information they were supposed to. Hopefully that's remedied. You've told me it is. So yeah, everybody go and check the show notes. All the links will be in there. You can go across. There'll be pictures of the watch. So thank you so much for joining us on the show, and we'll catch you again soon.
Pleasure being here. Hopefully soon again, Ricky.
Well, always great to hear from someone different on the show. Maybe that's the first time you've heard from that brand specifically, but definitely worth checking out what they do. You never know. They might do something that floats your boat or is priced in your price category. But I think we're kind of getting towards the very end of the show. We've managed to pack it full of nonsense and us talking absolute gibberish. But, well, that's kind of what people have come to expect from us.
We can tell you to go through our back catalogue if you've got a little bit of time on your hands. James Lamburn, who is a fantastic author, writer, doesn't like to call himself a journalist or a reporter because he's a little bit timid that way. We're trying to coax him to talk more about himself. He was on quite recently, chatting about all things getting into the world of watch journalism. He has been, well, a collector for a while, got involved thanks to his grandfather. It's a familiar tale. Other people have had similar experiences. And then obviously prior to that, we had Simon from Montblanc Minerva chatting about great things, and when he comes back on, we'll be talking about the great things we discussed in this episode. Prior to that, Barbara was reporting on her visit to Hong Kong, and we've got the video version of that coming out soon. We're just waiting for all the clips to come across. Dave, what else is in the back catalogue?
Well, we've got a lot of, well, I would say exciting. Well, let's go with exciting. Geneva Watch Days coverage over 2 shows where we kind of give you a fast and furious overview of everything that we got up to, good, bad and indifferent. And we got to see, well, quite a few brands that we've never dealt with before, never talked to, never seen their stuff. And we tried to this year go a little bit off centre, off piece, so to speak, and go and see some different stuff. So check out those shows. If you want to get a quick link to it, go to the show notes, and hopefully Mizzy L will have put the correct URL in, and you can click it and it'll take you straight to those shows. But there are well over 700 episodes now from day one until, well, right up to today. I'm sure if you type in some keywords that you're looking for, hopefully it'll spit them out at you and you can get to listen to maybe what you want to hear about watches, because within reason, we've covered, well, an awful lot of brands over the years.
We have indeed. And that is pretty much the end of an episode. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you again soon.